Okay, Chairman Dominguez, we are streaming.
Thank you, Sal. Um, Welcome, everyone. Uh, I would like to call this meeting to order. Dr. Albright, may I have a roll call, please?
Danella Storga,
Here.
Ronaldo Tomorito,
Here.
Heather Benavides,
Here.
Courtney Jackson,
Here.
Josefina Dominguez.
Here. Next item on our agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Our first item for consideration and action is to adopt the agenda for November 3rd, 2025, Policy Committee meeting. Dr. Albright. Sorry, it's been a very full day. Could we have a motion and a second, please?
I move that we accept the agenda for the policy committee meeting held tonight on November 3rd, 2025, Board Member Benavides.
I will second Board Member Tomorito.
Dr. Albright, may we please have a roll call vote?
Danella Storga,
Yes.
Ronaldo Tomorito,
Yes.
Heather Benavides,
Yes.
Courtney Jackson,
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez.
Yes. The next item for consideration and action is approval of the minutes from the Policy Committee meeting on October 5th, 2025. May I have a motion and a second, please?
I move that we consider approval of the minutes from the policy committee meeting held on October 5th, 2025. This is Board Member Benavides.
I'll second. This is Member Jackson.
Dr. Albright, may we please have a roll call vote?
Danella Storga,
Yes.
Ronaldo Tomorito,
Yes.
Heather Benavides,
Yes.
Courtney Jackson,
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez.
Yes. Next item is the public forum comments, limited to agenda items. Comments shall be limited to matters listed on tonight's meeting agenda. Welcome to our public forum guests. When you signed up to speak, you were asked to review rules and expectations, which I will enforce. The New Mexico Open Meetings Act requires that our agendas specify in advance the items that will be discussed and voted on during the meeting. Therefore, public forum isn't a dialogue among speakers and board members, but rather a chance to hear from our community. We will call participants to speak in the order they signed up. Online guests will stay in a virtual waiting room until it is their turn to speak. We have set aside 45 minutes for public forum. If there are 22 or fewer speakers, you will each have 2 minutes to speak. Otherwise, you will have 1 minute. Tonight, we have 8 speakers, therefore 2 minutes each. Once your time is up, you will be asked to quickly wrap up. If you feel unable to convey your message, you may email boarded, one word, at aps.edu. And at this time, Mr. Gonzalez will introduce our speakers for tonight.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Our first speaker this evening is Waldo Rojas. He's already in the room. Mr. Rojas, you'll have 2 minutes once you begin speaking.
Okay, ready. Madam Chair and members of the board, my name is Oswaldo. I am a graduate of the New America Charter School. I have one daughter. I am a product of the successful pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship and now mentorship program. When I was 17, I got connected to the Albuquerque Running Start for Careers program, which introduced me to the trades. At 17, I got an internship with Associated Builders and Contractors. I entered the ABC apprenticeship program at 18, where I completed 4 years of academic training in construction, specializing in carpentry alongside 8,000 hours of on-the-job training. During that time and beyond, I proudly worked on countless APS projects. Today, I'm a proud member of the skilled trade workforce, all because I had the personal drive and access to strong apprenticeship programs. The use of community workforce or labor project agreements as outlined in the current policy would effectively counsel someone like me from participating in APS projects. These agreements are designed to cater to union labor programs and their employees. They do not represent the majority of the peers, and they do not include me. Because language matters, I'm asking you to strike the specific reference to community workforce or labor project agreements and instead include inclusive language that values all contractors and apprentices. Thank you. Appreciate you guys' time.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Zach Thompson. Mr. Thompson, are you there?
Yes, good evening.
You have 2 minutes once you begin speaking, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. My name is Zach. I'm a graduate of La Cueva High School. I have 2 sons that attend Dennis Chavez Elementary. I am president of a local small business general contractor that has worked with APS for over 30 years. Every one of our projects completed for APS was successfully completed with a team consisting of both union and non-union contractors. I am concerned about the proposed use of community workforce or labor project agreements because they place preference on contractors and subcontractors, which are signatory to collective bargaining agreements. This preference excludes most contractors in Albuquerque. Now, I can say, based on evidence from recent APS project bids, that the number of subcontractors that specifically take exception to labor project agreements is growing with every project. We have real data that shows local small business companies do not wish to be signatories to collective bargaining agreements, and that number seems to be growing on every APS project bid. Now, why does this matter? It most assuredly means that competitive pool of contractors and subcontractors bidding APS projects will shrink if these agreements remain as stated. With smaller pools of competition, pricing tends to be less competitive also. It is within the best interest of taxpayers to maintain a competitive contractor pool. Now, one of the stated purposes of the policy is to advance inclusive economic participation, but based on my experience with the knowledge of labor project agreements and community workforce agreements, the exact opposite outcome is actually achieved. These create an exclusive environment for union contractors and subcontractors and place a disadvantages on contractors that are merit-based. If exclusive economic participation is the goal of this policy, I encourage you to strike any reference to community workforce or labor project agreements from the inclusive contracting section of this policy.
All right, sir. Thank you. Our next speaker is Ryan Pauley. Brian, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can. You'll have 2 minutes once you begin speaking.
Madam Chair and members of the board, my name is Ryan and I am a 2023 graduate of La Cueva High School. I am currently a student at UNM studying construction management and I'm working as an intern at Thompson Construction. In this role, I have the opportunity to support construction coordination for the new Corrales K-8 school and Harrison Middle School Phase 1 projects. I represent the future of construction industry and speak to you as a young person looking at the opportunities that lay before me. The proposed policy of new capital construction says the district shall pursue community workforce and labor project agreements. These agreements do not foster an environment of equal opportunity for all contractors. Please consider the impact on the future generation of today's students and apprentices and consider eliminating any reference to community workforce and labor project agreements in your policy. By supporting fair and open competition, especially among your current and future contractor pool supporting APS projects, you are supporting a policy infrastructure that provides opportunity to all workers, both union and merit-based. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Allie Moore. Allie, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
We can. You'll have 2 minutes once you begin speaking.
All right. Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. My name is Allie Moore. I am a graduate of Sandia High School, and I also represent the 12% demographic of women working in construction. It's important that we all understand the regulations that govern public works construction in New Mexico. And so I'd like to use my time tonight to explain these. First is local hiring. The APS request for proposal process already rewards contractors who use local teams, and it's working. I looked back since 2018, my company has built multiple APS projects, and 73 of our 78 subcontractors were New Mexico businesses, employing New Mexico families. We don't need a union mandate to keep work local. We are already doing it. Second is fair wages. State law already requires that every project over $60,000 pay prevailing wages. That means that everyone on the job, be them union or non-union, earns the same fair rate. Workers are already protected under the existing law. And third, apprenticeship opportunities. State law also requires public contractors to hire apprentices or pay into the Public Works Apprenticeship and Training Fund. APS even scores apprenticeship participation in its RFPs, be them union or not. What project labor agreements do is limit opportunity. They restrict participation to union signatories and shut out other qualified local contractors and tradespeople. On the last 11 APS projects, my company has built 100% of them, included both union and non-union workers working collaboratively. New Mexico's construction industry already reflects teamwork, fairness, and inclusion. We don't need an outside agreement to divide it. So I respectfully ask you to oppose any language requiring project labor agreements. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Andy Thompson. Andy, are you there?
I am here.
You'll have 2 minutes once you begin speaking, sir.
All right, Madam Chair and members of the board, I am Andy. I'm a graduate of Sandia High School and a graduate of the Carpentry Apprenticeship Program, and I currently hold my GB 98 contractor's license. As a contractor, I entered the scene after the architects and engineers have designed the project. They provide me with a set of plans, and it's my job to bring their vision to life. But as it often goes, the details within the drawings are not always constructible. There may be limitations with existing structural members or assembly challenges that are easier drawn than physically constructed. When this happens, I work with the architects and engineers to find a constructible way to deliver on their vision. I feel this inclusive procurement policy somewhat parallels this issue of constructability. While it signals a vision of inclusion, it does not translate that way in physical form. Conservatively, 90% of the skilled workforce in New Mexico is not union signatory. As someone who likes to make miracles happen, I can tell you that 10% of the skilled workforce is not equipped to deliver on 100% of APS projects, especially if you're wanting to it completed on schedule with a workforce that is adaptable and solution-oriented. Finally, taxpayer-funded projects should not undermine fair and open competition. If inclusive procurement is the goal, I urge the board to practice inclusivity for the sake of constructability and remove project labor agreements and community workforce agreements from the draft policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is, I believe it's Rosendo Najar. Najar?
Rosendo Najar.
Thank you, sir. You'll have 2 minutes once you begin speaking.
Okay, good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Rosendo Najar. I did not graduate from APS. I actually dropped out of APS, but I would have graduated from Hayden High School. But I did get my GED at CNM, when it was TVI. I'm the president of Carpenters Local 1319, and I'm going to speak to you guys today from the heart, not off a script. There's a big misconception about what a community workforce agreement actually entails or what it does. A lot of the stuff that was spoken about today, saying that it mandates, it is not a mandate. To mandate a union-only project labor agreement would be against the law. If you look up Taft-Hartley from 1947, it specifies there how a PLA can't be just union-only. So that's a misconception that it does not just say union-only. This community workforce agreement does not also exclude any small businesses. It simply entails a threshold, anything above the threshold of $5 million, like it is right now in place with the city of Albuquerque and Bernalillo County. They have community workforce agreements there as well. We're just simply asking the APS model something similar to emphasize that when the investments being made into a project from the taxpayers, it should be somewhat investment back into the community, whether it be workforce development, skilled force training. I mean, anybody that's a state certified apprenticeship could be part of this PL project labor agreement. Not only just union contractors have state certified apprenticeships. Here right now, AGC has one, so does ABC. It does not exclude anybody. What it does is it incentivizes people who are going to say we have workforce development training, ERISA quality pension plans, and insurances, that way to ensure that they're not on the taxpayer's dollar once again for the workforce. So it does not exclude anybody. Anybody is able to bid on these projects. It actually is a great idea and has worked for very well for the open shop contractors with the city, because they get a free look into the unions where they can pull workforce from the unions without actually being a member. And that time is up, so thank you guys for the time.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Carla Kugler. Carla, are you there?
I'm here, thanks. Yeah,
Yeah.
Carla Kugler. Madam Chair, members of the board, Carla Kugler, I am the president and CEO of Associated Builders and Contractors. We are a commercial construction trade association. We have about 200 contractor members, and we have the largest multi-trade apprenticeship program in the state. I'm also the chair of the APS Community Capital Advisory Committee. I do speak today regarding the some of the language and the requirements in the proposed capital construction policy, specifically the requirement of utilizing project labor agreements or community workforce agreements. While PLAs are often described as tools for fairness or equity, it's important to understand that PLAs don't ensure those values, right? Your proposed policy already supports inclusive contracting, fair wages, apprenticeship opportunities, community engagement, but they can all be done through competitive, transparent, and lawful procurement. Mandating PLAs does mean fewer bidders, higher costs, fewer opportunities for local apprentices and small businesses. Our contractors will not sign these because they don't feel comfortable doing so. So we can achieve equity, inclusion, and workforce development without restricting competition. If providing more equity, collaboration, transparency is what the intent is for capital outlay, I recommend that you address this with CCAC and the resolution in which it operates. I assure you that that conversation will be welcomed. So I wanted to just voice our concerns. We do have a lot of members that will give serious pause to bidding APS projects in the future with the requirement of project labor agreements. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our last speaker is Tristan Botcher, and they may have dropped off. I'm not seeing them, so that is the end of public forum.
Okay, if Kristen Botcher is not popping back up, then I guess we will proceed. I'm hesitant to move on because I know how tech can be glitchy. So, but
Madam
I'll
Chair,
continue.
Tristan was there until the right before this last one finished, and I asked to join and then disappeared. So it could have been a technology glitch.
Okay. Well, so Mr. Gonzalez, do you recommend we just move on?
We have attempted to text and call. We haven't got a response, so I believe we should probably move on. I don't know how long we can wait.
Okay. I feel better since we texted. And so I want to thank all of you who spoke tonight. This is a steep learning curve. And keep in mind that we don't have, no board members have staff. And the staff that we do have, they're engaged in a number of other things. So I want to thank everyone for the insights that you provided. And I want to share some background information that I hope will prove helpful. So based on a conversation with board staff on October 24th, the mention of project labor agreements or workforce agreements should have been edited in this draft of the capital planning and budgeting policy. That was an oversight, and I want to acknowledge it directly. Still, it seems to me that we all have some homework and research to do about PLAs or CWAs. So this oversight was unfortunate because I'm hearing cause for concern, and it distracts from many positive and forward-looking parts of this policy. As committee chair, I want to reaffirm something important. This committee's work is about building consensus and, above all, putting students' needs first. We can face any challenge as long as we stay focused on what matters most: our students, their families, and the communities that support them, all a variety of community stakeholders. Over the past few weeks, I've had many thoughtful conversations with parents, neighborhood advocates, and community partners, many of whom were here tonight. And what I keep hearing gives me hope. There's far more common ground than disagreement. People want fairness, transparency, and a process that reflects our shared values and local priorities. Here are a few principles that keep rising to the surface. Equity, making sure a diverse representation of small and local contractors have a fair shot at participating in the bidding process and extending that equity for students. Educational alignment, ensuring our capital projects create learning opportunities that support the whole child while also preparing our students for the workforce right here in our own city. Transparency and accountability, keeping families, advocates, and business leaders informed through honest updates about funding, project timelines, and community priorities, and ensuring that the entire community's input is reflected in the district's meeting agendas and in long-term planning and in the master capital plan. Community voice must not just be heard, it must be built into how we plan and invest for the future. We had a display of the first steps of diverse community voice in the planning of the APS Albuquerque Academies just last week, and we can build on that and extend it to the capital planning and budgeting policy as we draft it. Sustainability and resilience, designing schools and facilities that save energy, lower costs, and protect our environment for the next generation. And so I truly believe that we are closer in agreement than disagreement. And so everyone here understands that something has to shift if we want to strengthen both our community spirit and our local economy. And so just to be clear about next steps, tonight is strictly a first read of the policy. We'll make revisions, post the draft online for public feedback, and bring it back for a second read, and if need be, a third read. During this process, I invite continued conversation with our community, especially with parents and neighborhood organizations and their advocates. Your voices are essential. You are the people who see every day how district decisions affect your schools, your children, and your neighborhoods. So I'd like to see this policy ready for full board consideration by February or March of next year. I want to emphasize that the process itself matters just as much as the final product. And so we must model the same transparency, collaboration, and inclusion that we expect in the policy itself. And finally, I want to make a clear commitment that this committee and the board must continue to engage parent and advocacy groups from all parts of the city, especially those facing enrollment declines, right-sizing possibilities, or other challenges. Those communities are often, those that are most deeply affected are often left out or left behind, and we can't allow that to happen anymore. And so thank you all for your time, your patience, your wealth of knowledge. I learned a lot, and I'm going to be following up because all of this is done in the spirit of serving our students, our schools, and our neighborhoods. And so with that, we're going to move on to the next discussion item, which is the first read of the new, it says capital construction policy, but in my notes, it's the capital planning and budgeting policy. So we will discuss only the draft policy. The administrative regulations are the purview of the administration. These regulations were suggested by ChatGPT based on the draft policy that I entered into the program and a national search. I thought the suggested administration regulations might be useful to compare to the district's current administrative procedures, strictly for comparison. But again, these are not our purview. I also accepted ChatGPT's suggested governance for inclusion and equity benchmarks as a useful visual document to guide veteran and new board members as to the respective roles of the board and superintendent and potential next steps. Once the board passes a policy, what should our work look like? So regarding process, I'd like to begin with paragraph by paragraph, beginning with purpose. And please provide your responses to, in your comments, please be sure to provide your responses to the administration's administrative recommendations, comments, if you have any. And so with that, let's begin with the first section, which is purpose. And so does anybody have, there are only, I think, 2 sentences. Would anyone like to weigh in?
Chair Dominguez, can I just clarify something?
Yes, please.
So what we're looking at now, that administration recommendations, this was provided by the district administration. You lost me a little bit with the ChatGPT.
Oh, ask your question again, please. So I want to make sure I understand.
I got confused when you mentioned the ChatGPT that you used. So I'm just clarifying if the administration recommendations are from our district administration or this is what you put
Yes.
together. Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Thank you.
It's only the administrative regulation that appears shortly after the policy language, the draft language. That is ChatGPT.
So
Board Member Jackson.
okay, thank you, Board Member Dominguez. To comment on the administrative recommendations for the first part of this policy under the purpose, it appears to me as though the administration is making a concerted argument that this policy is not necessary, that it potentially sets us up for lawsuits, that it could potentially, that it's in violation of procurement law, et cetera, et cetera. What I think I would like to start with, if it's okay, is the administration weighing in on whether or not they believe that this policy is necessary, whether or not it is a governance role to have this policy, and where the effort and intent for this policy even came from. So I would like to hear from Dr. Blakey or Mr. Wajinje or somebody within APS, because it does seem to me as though the procedure that they linked in the documentation addresses the issues of equity, fairness, inclusion, all of the things that you mentioned. And it seems as though this policy is not necessarily a board policy. So I'd like Dr. Blakey or Mr. Wajinje to weigh in if possible.
Madam Chair and members of the committee, I can start, and then maybe Mr. Wajinje can speak to more specifics, or Dr. Gonzalez. Excuse me. The administration does not recommend this policy, as we do feel like it falls within the administration and not the governance role. If you recall, this was part of the policy diet, where these policies were moved to the administration, I think maybe a year and a half or 2 years ago. So we do currently have procedural directives under the Capital Master Plan review and update procedure that we could look at as reviewing and amending and adapting as our procedural directive. But we tried to go through each of the proposed languages with what we felt would be some of the maybe unintended consequences to the language that does refer to things such as the Zambrano Agreement, how PSFA currently operates, the Zuni lawsuit, which is how the capital outlay process for the state was designed. And we also have in the administrative recommendations some concern that some of the language is a little more day-to-day metrics than a high-level policy language. So you'll see in each of the items that you all have as the board policy in the statement with each area, we have included what we have concerns on with the language for each of those pieces. Dr. Gonzalez, do you have anything to?
Yes, thank you, Superintendent Blakey, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I would just add to Superintendent Blakey's explanation that while we do appreciate the values set forth in terms of equity, access, transparency to process, I'd like to just remind the board that a resolution was agreed to by the Board of Education in 2011 that established the Community Capital Advisory Committee. And this group does meet quarterly. It does consist of one member of the Board of Education, where a broad number of issues can be discussed toward implementation, toward engagement of community, toward engagement of some of the community partners that are involved in this industry. So that is just another piece, I think, worth mentioning in regards to the vibrant emphasis that we as a district do take in regards to engagement with the community and stakeholders.
Sorry, Chair Dominguez, do I still have the floor, or do you?
Go ahead and, well, I'd like to hear from, just be aware that Board Member Astorga has her hand up.
No, that's fine. I wasn't sure nobody was talking, so I'll reserve my comment until Board Member Astorga gives hers.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Jackson and Chair Dominguez. It's good to hear the administration's perspective, and I was hoping that Dr. Gonzalez or Superintendent Blakey can clarify to me what the issue is with the Zambrano Agreement, because the only thing that I was able to find around the Zambrano Agreement was directly related to South Valley schools only. And this was in the joint memorial for the state. So if you can give me some more clarity on what is overlapping that you see with that specific Zambrano agreement? Because I would assume we're talking about the entire district, and this specific agreement only talks about South Valley.
Go ahead, Mr. Wajinji.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Blakey, members of the board. The Zambrano agreement, yes, was something very specifically that talked about lack of equity in the South Valley specifically. But out of that agreement and out of that process actually came the capital master plan. So the capital master plan that was applied to capital for the whole district came out of the Zambrano agreement, and it was something that was agreed upon by an ombudsman, a judge, that not only ensured equity and transparency for capital outlay and capital expenditure, not just for the South Valley, but for every area of the district. And so that's why the Zambrano agreement is referenced over here. And that is why the capital master plan process at its core has a community capital master plan committee that is derived from the community and the schools as part of the core part of how this is done. So thank you.
Thank you for that clarification.
I have a follow-up though. How did the capital master plan intent and process then apply most recently to last year's right sizing decisions?
So I'll start that and then I'll give it back to Dr. Gonzalez and Dr. Blakey. Right sizing is not specifically an aspect solely of the capital master plan. The capital master plan is intrinsically involved in formulation in terms of the technical analysis for right sizing, but it's just one part of the direction that right sizing seeks to achieve. Most of what right sizing is done is based on student outcomes, resources available to the district, enrollment, and other analysis. And I'll leave it to Dr. Gonzalez and Dr. Blakey. Continue that.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, just to expand on this a little bit, I think the notion of right sizing is something that is not specific to Albuquerque. In fact, we were at the Council of Great City Schools a couple of weeks ago, and in many of the workshops that we attended, this is a nationwide reality in regards to birth rate, in regards to shrinking urban centers throughout the country. And looking at this from the local level in terms of Albuquerque, we recognize that our school district currently is able to accommodate much more than the 65,000 student enrollment that we have. At one point, we were 90,000 plus. Therefore, our prerogative or need to ensure that we are responsible to the Board of Education and the public is really looking at multiple measures, including enrollment trends, including the enrollment footprint of the district, programming, and more than anything, the environment to ensure that our students are able to be beneficiaries of a strong academic program in their school. And we recognize that when a school slips below a certain student enrollment threshold that is different for the elementary, middle, and high, it is incumbent upon us to really look and see how we can ensure that conditions are such that our students are able to thrive and that our educators are able to teach at the highest level possible. So over the last 10 years, there's at least, Mr. Wajinji will correct me, believe 7 examples of right sizing initiatives or endeavors where we have repurposed buildings throughout the district. We recognize that the work is dynamic. It's still in front of us based on the current student enrollment that we do see, as well as taking into account demographics that inform us moving into the future.
And so how is, and this will be my final question before I pass it off to somebody else. I guess my concern is how is community, like neighborhood, at the neighborhood level then involved in right sizing? Because there's got to be at some point, I'm searching for a marriage of the capital master plan work and its impact on right sizing or vice versa. But at the core of all of it is giving voice to the neighborhoods who are going to be the most impacted, and the children and their families, and finding a way to get that engagement, making that more robust. And so that is one of the purposes, one of, broader purpose in this policy.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, as Mr. Wajinje explained, like the capital master plan is broader than an individual piece of right sizing, which is a little bit different as far as like it's a subsector of how we look at how we use capital resources for the district. So the capital master plan itself and using capital resources is a broader umbrella than looking at the individual uses of facilities in that sense. For example, when we rebuild buildings, we often look at how it could be used to hold more students, less students, how we're designing out several years and how we redesign schools. And so it's really important, I think, to note that the capital master plan is very broad. We're looking at how capital resources are used throughout the district, whereas talking about repurposing schools or right sizing is very unique to a subsect of how we adapt to changing enrollment throughout the school district of losing 30,000 students. It has a different point to it. The capital master plan is much broader.
Anyone else have, I'm gonna call on board member Benavides. Do you have any questions? Oh,
No, I just wanted to recognize that Board Member Jackson did have a comment that we hadn't gotten to.
Go ahead, Board Member Jackson.
Okay, thank you. So I think what I'm kind of trying to wrap my head around here is what the intent of this policy is. Is it to address capital master plan? Is it to address right sizing? Is it to address community engagement? Is it to like the point that the reason that it came back to the policy committee based on the action memo was to incorporate student outcome strategies, including the rationale, target population scope, and timeline guiding the implementation of the capital master plan. So what I'm kind of hearing from the administration is that the capital master plan doesn't necessarily is broader, is larger than right sizing. And so I think what I'm also starting to realize is that there is a lot of expertise that goes into this, and that we as board members are not necessarily in the position to determine what that expertise or to dictate that expertise. That is why we have the superintendent who is hired, Mr. Wajinje and Dr. Gonzalez. I need to kind of think on this. I'm not speaking very very eloquently, but it just doesn't seem like this policy is something that is a governance policy. A lot of this is administrative. All of it is administrative. I did a quick review of the capital master plan procedure, and a lot of everything that is in the policy is already in the procedure. So I just think that this is one that we have this conversation. The superintendent listens to what some of our asks are, and then she takes it back and adapts the procedure instead of necessarily having to create a policy just for the sake of having a policy.
You, Board Member Jackson, for those comments and observations. Would anyone else like to weigh in?
I can weigh in, Chair Dominguez.
All right. Thank you.
I apologize. It seems like it's a discussion between me, you, and Member Jackson. It's just, but I'm really reflecting on public comment and how it seems that the community is fine with this new policy. The only concern they're having is a specific wording with the CWAs and PLAs. So that gives me a little bit of motivation to continue this work, just because it doesn't seem like there's any issue with the policy itself. So if I may suggest that we move forward and talking a little bit about that, just to make sure that the community members who are listening, who joined public comment, do have some of that discussion or are able to feel comfortable with us listening to them and being able to provide some feedback.
Board Member Astoria. Board Member Tomorito.
Yes, I just want to post to the administration, Superintendent Blakey and Antonio and Mr. Is he gone? No, they're there. I just want to ask, and with the sombrero agreement, and it's stating the lack of equity, and now that through the judgment and the ombudsman in creating the whole capital master plan, could you answer the question of, can we do better? Are we doing enough to where equity, transparency, and all of those things since written, can we do better?
So I'm trying to see we all turned our microphones off at the same time.
Yeah, because I see a great foundation laid out, but I'm just wondering with some of the questions that are occurring, with Board Member Dominguez about transparency and all of these areas, I think the intent is there, but I also just want to pose the question of, can we do better?
I can start and then I can see Dr. Gonzalez wants to add anything. I think, yes, we can always do better. And as we continue to change, everything in our world changes and evolves. And with that, we have to continue to evolve and look at different ways of how we involve community, how we listen to community, how we make decisions. So I think, yes, we can always do better and we strive to do better all the time. And it's always a work in learning about what went well, what didn't go well, and how we can make things better for the next time. I think that's how we approach our work. I think in this particular policy, it's not whether or not it's needed, it's whether or not it is the administration or the board. So I just, in full transparency, I think it does have a lot of feedback for the administration on what we can do to continue to evolve and listen to feedback and make sure that we are really being strategic with our capital master plan and that we're being open. It's just on whether that work falls on the administration or the or the board. And I think from the administration, the feedback is very helpful. And this is in our realm of what we need to do better on, to be listening to the community and to be good stewards of how we are using our capital to make sure that we are always evolving and following the needs of the community.
And Madam Chair, members of the committee, I would just add to that, that absolutely, we always strive to do better. We need to do that. I do believe that in current procedure, we do have the systems or mechanisms to engage our community and stakeholders in the Capital Master Plan Committee process, as well as the Community Capital Advisory Committee. Those are two examples of established spaces, if you will, where membership, although evolves and changes, we can work to ensure that we are engaging our community well through those systems and procedures, but using that only as a beginning space to get into the community in a deep way, visiting community centers and schools and places of community participation, so that we are able to be more strategic and intentional in really putting ourselves out there to share the process, to share the nuance and the technical nature of how we evaluate capital needs and how we evaluate systems that go into determining our next steps, be it through the capital master plan or initiatives and work like right sizing.
Unless somebody else, yes, thank you for that. I'd like to zoom out into from a policy standpoint, because when I look at, I just want to reiterate that under purpose, I think there are lots of policy concepts here that we don't have in writing. First, that the Board of Education affirms the district's facilities are community assets. I think there's the educational equity piece of it as shared economic benefit. And this is given rise by the new, we have new goals and guardrails. And I think this language, high level language, speaks to that reality, that new reality. The language is also about ensuring that all capital investments advance student outcomes and neighborhood well-being. I don't see language, policy language that addresses that. And extends it to an inclusive economic participation. So I don't think this is in the weeds at all. I mean, how you implement these concepts, like I said, is up to you. The administrative language that ChatGPT offered is something that you all did weigh in about, but that is on your end about as to how you want to implement this high level language. And I see your hand up, Board Member Benavides.
Thank you, Chair Dominguez. Lower my hand. And for those who are counting, I believe now all board members have chimed in, so it's a conversation we're all having. But I just wanted to acknowledge your hard work on this proposed policy change, and I do appreciate that. I would like to have more information on the project labor agreements because I was struck by the strong arguments on both sides from public comment. And I just don't feel like I have enough information. And because there was such a strong comment from both sides, I really would like to know more about that before we move forward. It does sound like this is an administrative duty and not necessarily a board duty, but I think that maybe we can treat this the way we are thinking about the charter school proposed policy and maybe create a strategic plan for the board moving forward, as opposed to trying to change the policy, which really maybe isn't in our purview.
Thank you. I appreciate that perspective. Does anyone else want to weigh in? So because we're stuck on the purpose right up front, and I agree with you that my interest is piqued on the community workforce or labor project agreement. I think we need to do more research about that because I'm hearing conflicting perspectives. So there's some work to be done there. But yes, I think, and there's also work to be done in terms of thinking about this as a policy. So, and I don't want to belabor any of this. If we need to stew on what we've discussed so far, then we can do that. But it would be helpful to hear more from all of you, more feedback before the next meeting. And I'm going to call on Board Member Tomorito.
Courtney's hand was up first.
Okay. Okay, Board Member Jackson.
It's okay. It's all right. Go
No,
ahead.
no, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I think what I was going to say is kind of based on what you just said, Chair Dominguez, and what Board Member Benavides says, is it does sound like there needs to be a little bit more time for reflection on this policy. If we're having this much discussion about even the purpose of the policy before we move into the statement, the potential statements that are involved with this policy, it sounds like there needs to be maybe a pause. And I know for me, what would be helpful for me is to be able to get more information on the PLAs, more information on the administrative side, more information on CCAC and how they can be used with community voice, maybe more information about specifics as to how community voice is implemented. Like in number 1, underneath you say that they are engaged early and continuously in decision making. Like, is that a specific sentence that needs to be maybe placed into procedure? I think what I would like to take some time to do is compare what the policy is asking for versus what the procedure already says. So my request is going to be that we table this so that we have some time to get a little bit more feedback and then discuss it, at the next policy meeting, maybe with a little bit more depth to the discussion. So that will be, I haven't made the tabling motion yet, but I might come back, or I will come back.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate your comments. Board, I don't know who was up first. Board Member.
Chair Dominguez, I believe it was Member Astorga Ramos and
Okay.
then Member Tom Guarido.
There you go.
Thank you, Member Benavides. I just think it's important for me to share my thoughts on this specific policy because I think where my head was the title, right? In the discussion report where it says this is a capital construction policy. So my mind went to new construction of facilities, where I thought this was important to really talk about the CWAs and the PLAs when it comes to new construction, because that's really where the policy comes from. So wanting to throw that out there since we're talking about the purpose of the policy. So I think it's important that we have conversations around equity when it comes to new construction. And I wanted just to remind board members and the folks watching that there was a comment made about thresholds, right? Since there was concerns about the CWAs and PLAs. So being that this would be on new construction and folks bidding and going through procurement, just clarifying board members wouldn't be the ones to determine who works on those projects. It would be through procurement. And I just want to share that I support the language of CWAs and PLAs in this specific policy, just because I do feel like it is needed to ensure equity. And from what I gathered, and I agree with all of you about learning more, I'm just reflecting. But what I gathered was that there already is inclusion and equity and points of what's already in the policy that aligns with what the CWA and PLAs would ensure. The only thing is that we are putting a cap at $5 million. So anything above $5 million would then go into the CWA or PLA. And Dr. Gonzalez can correct me if I'm wrong, and I see Superintendent Blakey's hand up as well. So I'm just kind of reflecting on everything that's going on. So I think for me, my learning and the time that we take to hear more from community and from our partners is really on this new construction policy. So I want to go back to that, Chair Member Dominguez, and just make sure that that's what we're talking about. We're not necessarily talking about the capital master plan that's already in place. This is something new. And hopefully my thoughts, I see some of you nodding, so hopefully that came through correctly, but I wanted to just make that comment about my support for this language and my support for the need of this policy.
Thank you, Board Member Astorga. And I do want to clarify something because some of you may not know what the Community Capital Advisory Commission is. So I'm happy to let maybe Superintendent Blakey clarify that for everyone. And I don't know who had her hand up first. So it's either Superintendent Blakey or Board Member Jackson.
It's Superintendent Blakey.
I just, Madam Chair and members of the committee, I just have a couple of suggestions as you continue to work on this. My first suggestion is that I hear a lot of language about some more community-centered budget, and you might consider revising the current budget policy to include that, so that it doesn't seem like there's two different policies on budget, as capital is a form of funds that we use. And so it may be more helpful to be part of the current budget policy. And the second thing is I hear a lot of questions and maybe needing of more information before we move forward on such a policy. So I suggest that maybe we have an orientation session for the board and the new board members to really go over the nuts and bolts of the capital master plan and capital in general, to then move forward with, based on some more information that it sounds like people need before making informed decisions on this policy, and hearing what procedural directives we currently use for capital might be helpful.
I think that's correct. Thank you. And okay, so I need somebody to explain the capital Community Capital Advisory Commission. And who sits on there and who doesn't sit on there?
I can start, but Mr. Wajenje, do you know more of the history of when it was created? Do you want to add to it?
Yeah, let me start and then you can finish it off. So the Community Capital, Madam Chair, members of the board, the Community Capital Commission is a commission that was formed in 2005, when we had just come out from the loss of a mill levy election for various reasons. And that was not only a reflection of the community not having enough confidence in what we were doing with their taxes in terms of capital. But there was a huge outcry at that time because the west side, specifically the northwest side and some of the southwest side of the district, was growing at 15% a year. Some schools were growing at 20% a year. Schools like Cibola and West Mesa were at 150% of capacity. Cibola, for example, had at one time 3,500 kids, was only supposed to take 2,000 kids. And so we couldn't build schools fast enough. And this was on the heels of the previous decade when Rio Rancho had broken away specifically because of this issue, because we weren't building schools fast enough for Rio Rancho. So Intel built them a school and they got their own district. And so we were still going through that situation. And when we lost a mill levy election and came back with a very abbreviated small election, the community, West Side community, Southwest area of neighborhoods, the business community, the construction community came together with the board and the superintendent and said, how can we get together as a community and get this thing so that it can be equitable and it can make sense, but can also build schools quickly enough for the West Side and rebuild older schools on the East Side. And so an ad hoc commission was created that would give suggestions to the Board of Education that could then be adopted as policy by the administration in all matters capital. And the composition of that board was and still is a lot of industry professionals from not only construction, but from finance. There was neighborhood organizations, and there was also representation from legal enforcement and all that. So when this happened, it was so successful in terms of the suggestions. Some things were implemented in terms of our capital policies. And as a result, for the first time in 3 decades, the district actually went out and got not only a new bond, but a tax increase in 2006, which passed by 75% margin. And since then, the Board of Education has kept the Community Capital Commission in process, and it advises the board and the administration on things capital. It's in addition to the Capital Master Plan Committee, which is purely a community-based committee that is used to assess what we do in the Capital Master Plan, because the Capital Master Plan prioritization is technical and is also based on technical and engineering prioritization. So that is what CCAC does. I don't know, Dr. Blakey, do you want to continue with that?
No, I think that was helpful. Thank you.
Could you clarify who the neighborhood associations are? Because my impression is that I've not heard anybody introduce themselves as such.
So, Madam Chair, there's always an open seat and volunteers and acclamation by the committee on who's involved. There was a very strong neighborhood involvement in the beginning, but as schools were built and as success was made in terms of getting these bond elections passed. We had a lot of people retire. The West Side Coalition was very, very much involved. So was the Southwest Association of Neighborhoods. And at this time, I don't think they've put word out for volunteers. It's been a while before we've had representatives from community, but it's always something that the commission and the board representation can bring up to the commission and say they would like more direct community involvement and bring back and put the word out that they need neighborhood involvement in this. So it's right now, there isn't specifically anybody involved in the CCAC from the neighborhood coalitions, but it's not something that can't be done. However, in the master plan committee, we have direct people from the neighborhood. So,
and there is just additionally this CCAC is a committee that started as a board resolution, so it is part of the board, and we have a resolution that was created in 2011 that outlines the resolution for having this committee.
So should the board be, if it's a board, I'm just trying to figure out where the CCAC fits into this overall, our homework in understanding the overall.
The board created
purpose.
a commission and then delegated it to the superintendent to have meetings with the commission. And the commission has an advisory oversight role of capital programs.
Okay. So, all right. Okay, I hope that was helpful to everybody. And it's important to have, just FYI, it's important to have a board member continue to be a representative on that commission. And I've learned a lot. But yes, and community, it's interesting to me that even on that commission, there's a desire for more say and more representation, engagement. But anyway, yes, I don't want to belabor this because I'm hoping Board Member Jackson has something to offer.
Well, I'm hoping that I'm going to come in and just tie this up with a bow to say that it sounds like that we do need a pause. When I had raised my hand originally, it was because Board Member Astorga, I thought it was interesting that she read it as a new construction policy. I read it as a potential capital master plan, capital outlay / right sizing policy. It seems like maybe the intent of the policy isn't totally buttoned up yet. And so I think we need to put a pin in it and maybe get some more side-by-side analyses and move this till next month.
And I would welcome perspective and language from all of you. So, okay, may we move on? Do we need a motion? I think we might need a motion to.
You do not, because it's a discussion item.
It's a discussion item.
So,
yay. Okay. Yes, it is a discussion item. And so I am going to move on to the chair report, and let me find the notes that I was provided with. So we have an update on IH9 tribal consultation policy. There was a legal review by Walsh and Gallegos. That was sent to all of us. And I just want to point out, it's a review. It's one perspective on it. Next steps, I was informed that in this update that tribal leaders have requested that this policy be brought to the tribal summit, the next tribal summit for joint review. And I think there is some clarifying that needs to happen between now and then. The next committee read is to be determined. On another topic, KC Charter School Policy. Currently, the first read in Policy Committee was October 6th. The committee has homework to revise the KC Charter School Policy, but I think the homework was to provide strategies, right? What will be the strategies that will govern the board in approaching charter school approvals as authorizers. And I highly recommend that you go to the PEC website. And in particular, there are a couple of documents on that website. So next steps, first read on 12/3, December 3rd, policy committee meeting. There will be a legal review after the first read. Once the legal review is complete, revisions will be posted for 30 days to gather public feedback. Next committee read is projected for January 2026 or February Board of Ed meeting. And finally, the capital policy language, we're still in discussion. We agree that we're going to do some research, and I think we're going to have a follow-up discussion. So next read will happen or discussion will happen in January or February of 2023 or 6, sorry, going backwards. So with that, I think we are ready. Oh, the next policy committee meeting will be December 1st, Monday at 5:15 virtually. And with that, we are adjourned. Have a good evening.